Well, I just got here, so I'm perfectly new to Kiev or Ukraine and ScalaUA, and it's the first time I'm here. So, but I was welcomed very nicely, so that's a very good first impression.
Very nice impressions. People are very friendly. They are approaching me in the corridor, want to talk about the different crazy ideas, especially after my talk. So lots of nice and fun discussions. I really enjoyed it here.
I really like this year presentations and speakers. There was a big improvement from last year, which last year was great also, but there are more good lectures and a lot of information good stuff that I wanted to know about.
Well, I was here last year and I think ScalaUA really improved. It grew, the lectures are really interesting and the crowd is like really into it, and I really like the time here.
So far very good. I really like the conference and I also like Kiev. It's diverse topics, different presentations.
It's good organized and there are a lot of places around here where you can go to have a quick break.
Well, my first and biggest impression so far is that's a really well organized conference. I mean, conferences are sometimes barely organized or things are ad hoc. Here you can't feel it. Everything is so nicely organized, speakers are taken care of, audience is taken care of. So that's by far the biggest impression it's made of me so far. So yeah, good work.
I know almost nothing about Ukraine, coming from Norway. The only thing I know is that there's a bunch of game developers in Ukraine. I know nothing about like the software world in Ukraine, so it was sort of, I didn't really expect anything, so it was nice to see that this is like a real conference with programmers, just like everywhere else in the world. There's programmers in Ukraine too. So it's a nice event, everything is very professional, it was easy to register. I'm happy so far. And technically very professional, I just had my presentation. Microphone worked, everything worked. It's good.
Actually, I'm first time here, so I wasn't on previous two Scala conferences, and I'm really impressed because I met a lot of friends here, a lot of my old friends, and apart of that, I met a lot of new connections here. So I'm really appreciate that I was invited as a speaker here.
Oh, I'm impressed. I think it's very well organized. It's a very nice place. People here are nice, like I feel at home. I'm from Poland. I've never been to Kiev before, but it's a very like a place I'd like to visit again. What can I say about the conference itself? I think it's a lot of information about specific technologies. If I can add something to it, it would be nice if you also had more talks about concepts, about some like broader issues. But apart from that, yeah, I like it. It's really nice.
Well, I think it's a really good vibe here. I'm really happy to see like so many people in the Scala community here in Kiev. It's awesome.
I really enjoyed seeing so many people coming to this conference, and I'm really pleased to see that the Scala community in Ukraine is growing, and I expect it to be even bigger next year. And actually, I really like it, so I want to come again.
This is my first time here, and it's really a lot better than I expected. I mean, the community is really vibrant, and I'm very happy to be here.
The good organization, I can say, from the very beginning at airport till now.
Well, it's a very nice conference. I really like the talks I've seen so far, and of course also the people in general I had the chance to chat with until now.
The amount of people internationally being here, so it's not only Ukrainian people, Israel, it's many different countries coming together to speak and learn about Scala.
Well, it looks very impressive. Actually, it's the first time that I'm here at ScalaUA, and the community seems very alive and bigger than I thought. So well done.
ScalaUA keeps surprising. So basically, what's not surprising anymore is that ScalaUA has the best food across all IT conferences I've visited. What was surprising this year is the speed with which videos of talks getting to the YouTube. It's like an hour after the talk, the video is completely mounted and online. That's incredible. Thank you, ScalaUA, for doing this.
Seems this year there are much more speakers than last year, and what surprised me the most is that I see, first of all, I see many familiar faces here, even for my colleagues that I worked with me before, and personally I get the impression that there are much more Ukrainian companies this year, so that's pretty cool.
Well, I'm ready after the first day, and I really like the conference. The talks are pretty nice, and the conference well organized, so it's great overall.
No, it's great. It was very interesting talks, and yeah, I enjoyed it very much.
Well, this is a wonderful experience because this is my first time here too. But based on what I have learned so far in the past few hours, I find the topics that you guys covered ranges from beginners to advanced topics, which is very nice, right? So it's all very educational for me.
Many interesting speakers and interesting themes to listen.
So far, ScalaUA has been awesome. I've had some interesting discussions, I've seen some interesting talks, and I've been made to feel incredibly welcome. So it's a great start.
So far it's pretty nice. A few sponsors, a lot of people, a few recognizable speakers. So yeah, nice.
I think it's great that we have something like that in Ukraine. So I know, like in the West, we have much more traction seen in Scala, and here it's not very usual. So I actually was very glad to hear that something like that happens in Ukraine. So I was very excited to apply and just to attend, just to see, and yeah.
I think my first impression is that it's a very well organized conference. There's a very good lineup of speakers, and I like the fact that there are different speakers that approach the Scala at a different level. So there are some very detailed talks about the low-level programming things, but also there are some other things that are more about the business that are also important to keep in mind.
It's amazing. So I had a look also on the website about the past edition, and if I compare the past edition to this one, I can see growth in terms of quality of the talks and in general about the organization. I highly recommend to attend this conference.
Oh, it's my fourth impressions, and with each year it will be louder and better, I guess.
Well, it is a very nice venue and also speakers from all over the world, and very nice topics, very nice and very modern topics, I would say. So the topics that are discussed are from the most bleeding edge of the industry, I would say.
I think it's a nice conference. It's nice and cozy, so not so big as like a huge conference like Scala Days or DevOps, but you really get to see the people and speak to everyone. I think that's really nice of a small conference like this. And I'm surprised to see so many people here on this conference. I really like it so far. So.
I'm sure this is a really amazing event, and really I was enjoying during a lot of these presentations because it were different, really interesting topics to discuss, and it was really many amazing talks and presentations, and I really enjoyed it.
Nice conference with a lot of talks, a lot of foreign speakers, and all talks are interesting about functional programming, distributed system with Akka, and even with Idris with dependent types.
I have very good impressions about ScalaUA. It's a great conference. I see the changes in the conference too. And this year I'm particularly excited to hear about the topics which are both like deep, about functional stuff, about isomorphisms and things like that, as well as practical stuff which is really important for engineers working in real systems.
It's great. I mean, actually better than I expected. I didn't know what to expect. It's cool. I liked it.
I have trouble keeping up with all the trends in the Scala ecosystem as a whole. But personally, of course, as I'm at JetBrains, I am focused on tooling, and I'm excited to help with synthesis of tooling of various tools outside of IntelliJ, especially with build tools, and integrating them better into a more unified experience.
So in Scala we are trying to move towards the more typing approaches and solutions. So types are everywhere. For example, akka is doing this akka type thing, then we will be able to create actors using types. And of course all these Scala Z and CATS libraries that are very using types under very often underneath, so that the developers can really use those types and create better solutions. So the trend is to use more types, to try out those ideas like IO monad or state monad, and new ways of doing side effects.
I'm not too familiar with like big trends at the moment, but the good thing is that we see more and more stable libraries and more contribution to the community. For example, in this conference I presented a new open source that we are exposing that was built on top of akka HTTP, which is also a mature version of libraries of Spray that was out there before that. So I think the big trends this year is having more and more code and more things from the community, and I hope other companies will invest in open source here the same way that Wix does.
I think in the next year or two, Java 9 will be coming out and Dotty will be released as well. And it will be interesting to see how stuff that was so far implemented one way on Scala will be changed to a new implementation by the infrastructure changes. That's it.
I think the global trend is that the trend is to a more functional way of programming. You see that with the whole new CATS effects library, that more and more Scala programmers will move in that direction, I think.
I think that what is most trendy is functional programming, and I think that people are already got comfortable with it, and I think it would be the mainstream for the next years, and it would be highly adaptable. Like, I think there are already a lot of features in Java which are really have functional semantics, and I think that what should take the world in future.
First of all, Scala, there's Scala 2.13 coming. That's going to be a big change, I think. New collection library. So probably we'll have to redesign our code a bit around it. And there is a new macro system coming to Scala as well. It can come this year to Scala. So we should stay on top of things and, well, don't keep the legacy code, keep up with the changes that are going to be big in Scala, and, well, good luck to all the programmers.
That's an interesting question, because I was here to talk about the database, and I don't program Scala at all. I've never even programmed Scala. And like my last slide was just mentioning that, by the way, this thing also works in Scala, because I'm more of a Clojure person. But I think we can be friends. Clojure and Scala can be friends. Don't you agree? We should be able to work together.
Well, I think that they remain almost without changes, because you need to be reactive as previous year, as the year before that year, and that means that you need to use something like akka, you need to be functional, you need to know how to compose your code well in order to keep it maintainable and functional. So that's all of the trends which remain the same.
I think learning. Like, there is this problem in Scala with how we go from being a beginner to being like an intermediate or advanced programmer who can already do something with the knowledge. And it's everywhere not only in Scala, but our language is known for this problem, that it's hard to start to get into it. So I think, especially this year, probably I hope in the future as well, we will try to find new ways to teach Scala to people, to let them know that they can be fearless, that they can learn by themselves, that they will find help if they need it. Yeah, at least for me, this is a very important subject right now.
Actually, the only way for me to track all the innovations and stuff is going for conferences. So this year, this is my first conference, so I don't know yet. But let's see what more we can get from the conferences. And I would suggest also Scala Days this year in Berlin. And Martin Odersky, the creator of Scala, comes there, and actually it's always like the whole bunch of news about the Scala World, and you can get all the useful stuff from it.
I think this year is the year of the I/O monad. Both the Catch library and the Scala Z, they have just recently published the I/O monad. It's their version, and a lot of work is done in this field.
Definitely, I think it's writing distributed and concurrent systems, which means that you have to be familiar with Scala futures and actors model, definitely.
I think we will definitely, or I hope to see that we will definitely see more from all the data analysis, machine learning corner, and hopefully also more from the language tooling.
It's a good question. I guess my answer would be probably Dotty, seeing where the Scala compiler evolves and the new ideas and patterns being implemented in the language.
I think that everybody is basically waiting for Dotty, and in the meanwhile trying to figure out exactly how functional the code should be. So I think that what Scala developers should do is basically try to find a balance between functional programming and other types of programming that could be idiomatic to Scala.
So as a Scala freelancer, I'm a little bit biased in this situation and what I see in my daily job. But I see that Scala projects getting older, new developers start to join those projects, and older developers leaving. And I can see that those new developers are often scared because of the complexity, and older developers are leaving those projects because they start to see deficiencies of Scala as compared to other languages. And that's the main trend in Scala ecosystem for me this year.
Probably it's upcoming releases of Dotty, and well, they promised it next year, but probably this year there will be much preparation, and seems that trend in libraries for learning seems it's everywhere. Many speeches this year about machine learning. I guess that will be the trend.
Right now there is much competition between streaming libraries like Cat's Effects and ScalaUA2018, and things are moving quite fast with many new implementations and very interesting future applications of these libraries. So I think it will be the big thing in 2018.
Well, I think this year may be a year of build tools. For example, I heard that John Pretty has built a new build tool, so I don't know yet what's new about it, but perhaps this would be something that changes. And I think 2018 is also a year of blockchain in general. I mean, any conference you go to, there is blockchain somewhere, so perhaps Scala will also have something to do in blockchain this year, so I'm looking forward to it.
I think it's new releases of Apache Spark, and I'm waiting for Dotty.
I think the things in the Scala world that are worth being focused on, and already are the working tooling. So there's already the language server protocol groups working and tooling groups. So I think it's a great time to get involved and really focus on using our tools and building tools fit for our community and grow with our community.
Currently, for sure, there's a bit of movement related to pursuing further functional programming and functional programming performance, etc. But also recently I have seen some movement around build tools, not yet seen much on conferences, but some new tools appearing.
You know, as always, there are different trends. Scala community is kind of fractioned between like enterprise and academia. It's a well-known thing. And people who are like associated usually with academia, like the functional programming purists and that kind of stuff, they are like, you know, driving community toward using more and more functional programming, people just switching to Haskell and things like that, and bringing more and more of that to Scala, run on JVM. But the enterprise kind of thing is moving toward, I guess, stability, towards using like frameworks. And the support and tooling is very important for that section of enterprise. It's much more important than for like academia, for example, and that's getting better. And I guess the trends, we'll see more I don't know, Scala JS usage, hopefully Scala native. We also have lots of like functional stuff happening more and more, and it will get deeper into enterprise.
Yeah, one of the topics I've seen happening today is discussions about the different elements that are involved in deploying microservices solutions. So they talk about how to better test things, how to do integration testing, how to do continuous deployment, continuous integration. And this is something that will continue, because as we move more into cloud-native solutions, all of these elements are very important and will continue evolving in the Scala world.
Oh, in particular, I believe in whatever is big data, machine learning, deep learning, which is my field of expertise, of course, is interested in this. But also in terms of cybersecurity and blockchain, there is a lot to do. So if I should suggest something to Scala developer is to upskill on these particular fields.
We have data science hype. Then we will have blockchain hype. And all wait for the changes of the Scala ecosystem, because now we have many new languages and rapid changes in ecosystems, and all wait in what will be for the next 2 years will be with new compiler, or evolution will be slow.
I think that there are two trends. First is scalability and distributed computing. These are Akka, Kafka, Cassandra, and distributed systems like that. And the second trend is robustness and compile time security. This is type-level organizations and monads, type classes, and programming with type classes, programming to type classes.
I'm not that into the Scala world maybe, but based on my talk for monitoring, for example, IoT devices, I think a lot of can be done with Scala to get measurements from sensor data and process this in real big scale for a lot of sensors. And you can see a lot of applications for IoT devices coming up nowadays, and other platforms as well. It's all about collecting a lot of data, and I think Scala can be a right tool to do that.
I think it's really a lot of changes related to parallel data processing, like distributed systems, and also I see many trends related to focus on performance, because it was different couple of years ago, and many people thought that Scala is pretty slow for work with something related to real-time processing, but it changed now. So
now there is a boom on implementing new I/O monads. So ScalaZ has its own I/O monad and Cats effect, and I believe it will help Scala developers to make functional programming simpler and performant?
I think it's worth focusing on. I think it's really worth focusing on the upcoming release of Scala 2.13. It's exciting that the collections library is getting more simple, more simplified. It's a general trend, I think, in Scala community that we are trying now to keep things not too functional, pure. But still pragmatic and simple at the same time. I definitely see the trend there. I also see the trend in frameworks like Lagom, for instance, and it makes sense to look at them and evaluate if they're appropriate for doing the job. And I also see the trend in machine learning, where Spark 2.0 and Scala-based things are playing a vital role here.
Apply to work at Wix, it's amazing. We have an office in Kiev, just apply and get in. Really, I mean, it's that cool.
My recommendation would be a very similar one. Please learn more about CATs and Scala Z. Try it out in your small services, in your side projects, in your normal company projects, and try it out. See for yourself how testable it is, how easier it is to reason about those snippets of code.
Keep coding in Scala.
I think as long as you find what interests you and you explore that and you dig into it, and you always improve and always keep curious. Don't stay in one place.
For Ukrainian Scala developers, more in general for Scala developers, my recommendation would be that if you feel that you have something to contribute, then contribute to the community. It can be a very small thing. For example, if you're using a library and you feel that something is missing, it can be something simple like 2 lines of code. It always works to make a pull request. Or for example, if you spend some time to solve a certain problem you encountered and you couldn't find a good solution on the internet, just write a blog post about it so you help other people.
I think to learn functional programming.
I suppose I was here to talk about Datomic, which is a database written by Clojure. It's like a Clojure thing, but it's usable for anyone on a JVM. So I'm a huge fan of Datomic, and it's very possible to use it from any language on the Java platform. So I would recommend all Scala developers to check out Datomic, because it's an amazing database. And the speaker before me made the point that Scala, functional, awesome, everything is great. But then you have the database, right, which is this huge blob of mutable state, and nothing is functional anymore. And that's one of the nice things about Datomic, which I also talked about in my presentation, that the title of my talk was Datomic, the functional database. So anyone who wants to do functional programming on the Java platform in any language would probably find something useful in Datomic, I think.
Well, I would recommend to ask a lot of friends who do in Java or do in Python just to switch to Scala, because it's more functional, I would say. It's more efficient. It's a much big pleasure to write your code in Scala comparing with other languages. Of course, if you spend at least 3 or 6 months on learning how to do it right, because otherwise you will feel yourself really uncomfortable. So that's it.
Yes, learn more, be bold, be fearless, try new things, don't just stick to what you know. But on the same side, it's like a difficult path, because in the same side, just don't go with a hype, and you have to really also think about what you just learned, is it really practical, does it make sense? But the more you push as a group, as a whole community, the more we push and we try to do new things, the better it looks as a result.
I think Scala is a great language, and let's keep making the community greater.
Just keep coming here and listening to the speakers and get some ideas of how we manage stuff, how people solve the issues. And the day when they have problems with solving something, they probably will remember about the topic they heard someday, and it will really help them.
to be patient. Scala is a really difficult language and it needs some studying and preparing in order to get familiarity and really be extra productive with the language.
Have to make difference between imperative and functional style of programming, and whenever it's possible, every Scala developer has to use functional style instead of imperative style.
You should try to love what you do and to be passionate about what you do and to always have an open mind and to learn new things.
Currently practicing more in international wide conferences, being and speaking with different developers around the world. There's many ideas and thoughts that we just don't communicate well because everyone sits in their own community silo. There's also different languages that we should speak and thought of, such as high scale, age race. There's other ideas that we can think and take to Scala.
Oh, just keep getting better. Come to occasions like this one and learn more Scala. That'll be great.
Maybe I can say something for new Scala developers. Scala developers who start to learn Scala. Don't think complex, think deep and interesting, and enjoy learning it.
I started Scala not that far away, and I guess the road in 1,000 steps starts from the first step. They just have to start.
I think the good starting point is to check out Bartosz Milewski's blog on category theory, and from then going through papers and books and so on.
Well, I think it would be a general recommendation that you should still look at new things, try to learn new stuff, and if you are a beginner in Scala, then don't stop at the beginning, at the beginner level. Try to learn new things, try some advanced stuff. Like there is a lot of Scala that the learning path is really long, so you can always learn some new stuff, some more theoretical stuff like category theory, monads and things like that. It really takes some time to understand it, but then when you understand it, it's like enlightening. So don't stop where you are, go further.
I think it's very important that you embrace Scala and do learn to use Scala the Scala way, and not just learn the syntax and try to program like in PHP or in Java. And that's a big challenge because a lot of things become very hard in the beginning, but I think that's very important because then you get the bonus of what Scala can offer.
What would I recommend? I would think for all the same reasons I've given earlier, a chance to learn, and also a chance to collaborate and to interact with other Scala developers, to exchange opinions and ideas.
I would recommend them to focus more at type level programming, at using cats shapeless in production, and to look at my library I will present today.
Get involved, learn, enjoy. Everything is an opportunity. The conferences, the online groups, the libraries, the communities are great. Learn, find things that are interesting, and just have fun.
For sure learn, explore conferences, also visit Scala conferences in different countries.
I would recommend really learn English. That helps, and watch lots of presentations like that. I hear like some people here say like, oh wow, I don't understand, I didn't get that or this, and that can be like, stopper in terms of like their development, their personal development. So I think that is super important. And just travel abroad, like see what else people do, because I used to work in Ukraine for a long time, and I know like here mostly we have we're doing projects for someone else. We don't have like too many like in-house projects, and this is where most interesting stuff happens. So look abroad, look. I don't like agitate to like moving, but just look what people do and like probably find like remote work if you want to find yourself in better positions in terms of like using Scala. There are lots of remote open positions.
my experience is that the Ukrainian developers can go very deep into some of the Scala topics, and I think that's great. But also, I encourage people to also keep a view of the larger picture, and there were some talks about that. How to also understand from what is the business value of some of the different elements that are associated with the language.
Be clever, be nice, learn, and in general, maybe any development is just an introductory journal. You try to do something. When you do something, when you know what you're doing, and do something more or less regularly, and then it is. And maybe my last and best advice is try to why people like Scala, because they like other smart people. Yes, and maybe to remember that development it's not only for introvert, it is also work about interaction with people.
Well, I would say that we lack more project-oriented organization. So we have really talented people who know their craft, who are very talented Scala programmers. But my impression is that we are lacking the direction in which to go. So organizational skills is really something that we need in Ukraine.
Always keep on learning and have fun, like I did in my talk. Just play around at home and make something useful for yourself or for at home that could be used for everyone, and that way you can learn.
It's definitely you have to visit events like this because it's really cool and you can meet really a lot of nice people and discuss something new. It makes total sense.
Participate in Scala conferences and in open source projects.
I think it definitely, if you didn't have a chance to play around with machine learning stuff, it's regardless of like programming language, but in 2018 I think it's really important to get your hands dirty with that, play around with Spark, play and start also getting your hands dirty with Dotty, and which is, as we know already, will be a Scala 3 release sometime.